So today I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind because it's quite relevant to a lot of current events going on. And it's I ran into a discussion last night that kind of confirmed that, I think I'm going to talk about this. And I've been thinking about it a lot. And that is the idea of labeling people. Yourself, labeling others. And I realized that actually sometimes people give this idea of labeling as if it's such a very bad thing to do. You're bad if you label anybody anything. But the truth is we all kind of do it. I label myself, I'm a musician. You could say that's a label because technically I could be anything. I could do something completely different tomorrow and then I would be that. So the idea of putting a label on something is kind of like a shortcut. And people label other people and it becomes a lot of misunderstanding. And this is happening a lot in our society today. So I wanted to talk about this. There's actually some stories in the Bible that would address this. I personally feel that this topic is being spurred on by current events with the way people are dealing with politics. In the Bible, everybody says, love your enemies. But, right now, it's almost like maybe the hardest way to apply that is to love your political enemy, the person who didn't vote for the person you voted for, right? That person is the scorn of the earth. That person is a danger to democracy itself. Both sides saying, you're a danger to democracy. No, you're a danger to democracy. And it's almost like a fight for who's moral, who's compassionate. No, my way of doing this is moral and compassionate. No, it's not. My way is. You have the left and right. So you have these 80 million people over here, and these 80 million or something million people over here, saying that the others, that entire group, I'm going to stamp one label on it and throw it all out. No good ideas over there. No compassion over there. No character over there. It's my 80 million people. And that's kind of the message you're getting, and we're all getting, from politicians and news media. And I was thinking about it, I was like, that's very convenient for a politician. Because they don't have to convince you on an individual basis. They can just convince your entire group. They could just convince you, But I was thinking about it, what else works like that? What else works like that? Almost nothing. Are all people who shop at Walmart broke? Are all people who serve coffee at Starbucks nice? Is any one category of anything always a certain way? And the answer is no. And this is why putting a label and just writing that person off, you voted for him or you voted for her, your opinions, you're uninformed, you have no good ideas. You have no credibility with me. I don't even want to talk to you. And this is, classically, this problem goes back to race. Oh, you're from that country? Okay, I get it. Imagine that. Can't you feel your blood boiling a little bit if you can imagine somebody saying, what did you say? Oh, you're Italian? Oh, okay, I get it. Okay. It's like, what do you mean you get it? What do you mean? You could feel that offense, instantly. Don't label me and presume that you know the other 99%. But that's what we're doing all the time. Actually, the news media and the politicians are doing that all the time. It's the black vote. They're one body. It's the white evangelical vote. It's like, wow, I guess all those people think the same way. And subliminally, the message to you is all those people think the same exact way, like a big herd. And we know that that's not true for anything. That's not true in our movement. That's not true in any case, ever. So the danger is they're saying your group identity outweighs your individual identity. Your group identity is what matters. And that's very misleading. There's a lot of danger in that. For instance, I was thinking about this. It's going to sound interesting. I'll say it anyway. What's my group identity? I'm a white, male, middle-class, evangelical pastor. I don't even know how to say it. If I said, hey guys, I'd like you to meet a white, male, evangelical pastor in his mid-30s. You should talk to him. We should hang out. Would you take that invitation? Does that sound really cool to you? Does that label fit? Well, it fits. It's technically correct. But those of you who know me are probably like laughing. I'm glad I got a couple chuckles, because if everybody was like, yep, that's him, I'd be like, oh boy, this was a bad example. You know? So I'm thinking about that. Like, take my label and then take me. And how far away are those things? You know? So it's a very interesting thought process that we don't let the group identity smear out and cancel out the individual's identity. It's very important. And I don't have my notes. They always go mysteriously missing. But I'll tell you this. Jesus talks about this. Jesus talks about this. Everybody knows this story, but I feel that this is an interesting setup to this story. It's the Good Samaritan. You all know the Good Samaritan, right? The story of the Good Samaritan. That's such a common phrase now. And I think as growing up, I felt like, oh, Good Samaritan means help people when they're on the side of the street, the end. It's kind of maybe my education wasn't so good. But here, the story really goes, somebody's asking Jesus, yeah, I understand I got to love God and love my neighbor, but who's my neighbor? And it's posed in the Bible as like a trick question. Like, we're trying to trick you. We're trying to get you to answer this wrong. Yeah, so who's my neighbor? Yeah, love your neighbor. Easy to say, who's my neighbor? And Jesus' answer actually gets to this topic of identity politics. It actually goes there. He says, well, imagine there's somebody on the side of the road who was robbed and beaten up, and 3 people come along. And the first one, he calls him a priest. A priest comes along, and when he sees the man on the side of the road, he crosses the street and avoids him. The second person, a Levite. He says a Levite. He doesn't say a man, or he doesn't say a woman. He doesn't say anything. He says a Levite. So, a guy from that place or of that identity. And does something similar. The third person is a Samaritan. That's typically, I guess, that was the name that they would use for people. The Samaritans were not on good terms with Jews generally. When you study it, you realize that they did some commerce together. They kind of knew each other, but they kept their distance. They really didn't associate with each other. Other side. I look at it today not as black and white, because, honestly, interracial marriage has been around now for a while. We kind of pioneered it. I'm proud of that. But it's really common now. So when somebody says, white people love black people love white people, I feel like, okay, that's one layer. That's one way to say it. But I like to do this. In our current climate, I would say this. A Republican is sitting on the side of the road and a Democrat is walking. A Trump supporter is sitting on the side of the road. Let's just get real, okay? A Trump supporter is sitting on the side of the road, and a fervent, feverish Hillary supporter is the one. No, okay, so let's change the story, okay? Trump supporters on the side of the road. The first person is a Bernie Sanders supporter. Crosses the street. The second person, Jill Stein supporter. Crosses the street. Third person, Hillary supporter. Says, hey, can I help you? Here's some food. Here, let's go to the hotel. I'm going to pay the innkeeper, and you can get better there. And whatever extra cost, I'll come back and pay the difference. Just keep him indefinitely till he gets better. Can you imagine that story now? First of all, I don't think the news would report it, honestly. They really wouldn't. Doesn't help the campaign, right? We spent all this millions of dollars making this guy look bad. Or whatever party looked bad. So imagine this. This is the real terms that we live in now. So this is like a gap of understanding. We like, oh, love your neighbors, love the other religions, love the other races, but you can go ahead and hate the living hell out of the other political party. Just go right ahead. We love it. That's the messaging. Is it not? Is it not? That's the messaging from both sides. And Jesus says, which one is your neighbor? So now I'm going to ask you again after telling you the story, which one is your neighbor? And he says, well, the one who showed the mercy, I guess. And Jesus says, bingo, you got it right. Now go and do likewise. Now be that. So he's saying your neighbor is not the person you labeled as neighbor. Your neighbor is the one who acted neighborly. Your identity is in your actions. Your real identity is in your actions. I don't care where you're from. I don't care who you voted for. The person who acted like a neighbor is the neighbor. He completely relabeled the situation. And so I think I like to take pause on this because quite honestly, I don't know if even me or anybody really walks around every day thinking, I'm going to remove all the preconceived notions of everyone and give them all a chance to, and then I'll relabel them. It's actually a lot of work in a way. You know, and the danger of putting these labels of, there's a second half to it. It's not only this person can't think, they have no IQ because they voted a certain way or they're from a certain country. There's also a second half to it that's like a permission to dehumanize or to a permission to not count them as equal. It's a permission. It's like, you can go ahead and hate this person. You know why? Because he's a danger to democracy. Or she's a danger to democracy. Go ahead and hate them. Actually, it's good to hate them because they're so hateful. Right? Oh, you're spewing out hate speech, therefore I can hate you. That's kind of what's going on now. And even if the accusation is true, even if it's true, that's not what the Bible teaches us to be like. So the second follow-up verse in the Bible I had for you, Luke 6:32, I believe. Okay. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? This is Jesus speaking. Even sinners do that. Your love doesn't really count, right? And if you lend to those from who you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. Oh, I didn't realize I had 3 slides. Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, I had 2. Okay. So the point here, and he goes on to say that God, if you love as God loves the wicked. God loves the wicked. So that's actually quite different. If somebody is different than your opinion and you think that they are wrong and bad, the Bible doesn't give you license to now be a completely different person, a person of no character or a person of accusation, really. It's actually our greatest challenge. And this happens a lot, not just in politics, but in race, nationality. And you know, I want to point something out. We're going to get a little bit real, but you guys can handle it. When I lived in the Bronx, I saw more hate activity or begrudging rivalry activity between people of very similar skin color, but different places of origin. Very true, right? So Puerto Ricans and Dominicans in Washington Heights have like a 30-year history of just absolute slaughtering each other. And to a gringo like myself, they look kind of the same, you know? So when you apply these messages of love your enemies, there's a very one-dimensional surface level of like, oh, it's only people of different skin color. No, it could be people of almost exactly the same skin color as you. Actually, usually it is that. Usually it is the country right next door. It's the Venezuelans and the Colombians. Right? It's India and Nepal. I had no idea. Nepal, my brother-in-law is from Nepal. I had no idea. That's a rivalry. We don't hear about that. Why would we? Nepal and India have a long history of mistreating each other. Long history. India has so much power, right, to control what flows in and out of Nepal that, if you have the wrong person in power, they control it, and then Nepal gets bitter and resentful. But what does the Bible teach us? If one group wrongs another group, who has to take the first step in the process of restoration? Which one? If group A attacks or harms or insults or injures group B in the process of real restoration, which one takes the first step? You got it. The one wronged. The one wronged. Group B. If that country occupied your country, it's now in your court. You're the one. According to the laws of restoration, of forgiveness. And it feels very backwards, right? It feels counterintuitive. In this sort of eye for an eye logic, it's got to be the one who did the wrong. He should come over here and apologize. Right? But the truth is, even those apologies, have you ever gotten an apology that feels so weak, you're like, yeah, thanks for that. It still sucks. Right? Oh, sorry, I ruined your new shoes. It's like, yeah, these were Yeezys, bro. You can't get these back. I'm gonna wait years to get these. So yeah, thanks for the apology, but you can't replace this, So the apology doesn't just equal forgiveness. The forgiveness has to come from the person being wronged. So if you feel that you're the victim, you are now the one who I think God calls to take the first step. The first step in forgiveness. And that's very painful. That's why our founders talk about, if you really pray about this stuff, you're going to pray with tears. It's going to hurt. It's going to feel like hell because you don't want to let that go. And so this is kind of what I think we're in the process of dealing with a lot of these emotions. I think we've inherited a lot of things, The whole idea of the intermarriage is that the kids can relate to both sides, which I think is beautiful and it is genius, but we need to keep it going more and more. Like I've been thinking, you know what? I'm sick and tired of hearing about endless war in the Middle East. I'm sick and tired of hearing about that. You know what? I think we need another Reverend Moon style intervention, and 1 million Jews need to marry 1 million Muslims. What would that do? I think that would actually do more progress than millions upon millions of board meetings from the United Nations or any other organization. So I want to just give this thought to you that the label never matches the person. Almost never. It matches one little part. And actually, the label blocks your heart. It can block your heart from loving the real person. Just on the way here, I was thinking, I wanted to ask you guys, think about somebody you really love. It could be your spouse, it could be your mom. When you think about your mom, if I think about my mom, I'm not thinking about a senior citizen, female, white professional with conservative values. Hello, Miss Young, female, senior citizen, white, conservative values. There's probably others I'm missing. Do you think of your mom that way? Mom is just mom. You almost forget everything else. So love gets blocked when you start inserting the labels. It doesn't resemble what a love relationship looks like. It doesn't resemble it. You don't think, Mom, oh, she's Taiwanese. If your mom's Taiwanese, your mom's Taiwanese. You just call her Mom. You just want that good food. You just want that food. Right? Same thing with anybody you love. So I want to drive home, this is a little bit of my social statement here, but the ways of true love are not being supported in this conversation of how could we label everybody, group everybody, and then write them off. That is not a pathway to you loving more people more genuinely. It's just not. It's just not. So I'm very grateful to be part of this teaching and part of this understanding of the Bible and understanding of our path here in life is to grow our hearts. We want to get closer and closer to that Messiah-like growth. We want to love the wicked someday. We want to try. So please, as you go along your day, try to see each individual as an individual person, not as a group identity. Give them a chance, no matter what your opinions are or no matter what your country of origin is. Think about the fact that if their country of origin is the thing that bothers you, you're actually kind of stuck in the past. That's where they were born. That's where they came from. That's not their future. And as we know, we all want to be citizens of a heavenly new world that we're ushering in, a different culture. That's your future. Where your past is where you were born. Sure, got it. Don't get stuck in everybody's past. We got to start promoting the bright future together. So thank you very much.